It's an arm of, basically it's a front for the CIA, and the USAID has traditionally been used to fund right-wing opposition groups, to destabilize the former Soviet Union and former communist countries in Eastern Europe, to destabilize independent socialist and anti-imperialist governments across Asia, Africa, Latin America. And in Cuba, we know, it's been released, it's been published in mainstream corporate media that USAID has been funding these right-wing rappers in Cuba. Many of them actually are not even in Cuba, they're based in Miami, but they're targeted toward Cuban audiences to try to spread propaganda. And they're working for the CIA, even if they don't say it. I mean, that's what they're doing. They're functionally working for the CIA to try to overthrow the Cuban government, to bring back the kind of dictatorship we saw under Batista, when Cuba was just basically a US colony. And I mean, they're using so many cynical talking points, and the US, which is one of the most anti-black countries in the world, which had a system of racialized chattel slavery and then Jim Crow apartheid until the 1960s, and still has de facto slavery and targeting black and brown communities. The US is trying to accuse Cuba of anti-black racism. I mean, it's another cynical example of how they're exploiting these talking points that are important among young progressive-minded people, but unfortunately, that propaganda can be pretty effective.
I mean, Cuba also, I mean, you have the history of them showing their internationalism against the anti-apartheid struggle in Africa.
Supporting Angola. against white supremacist apartheid colonial regimes backed by the US.
And in Namibia and many different African countries. You had Mandela, that when he got released out of prison, the first place he went to was Cuba, because he realized how Cuba helped his liberation. Also with the whole trying to like propagate the whole like anti-blackness on Cuba. Like, Cuba has Assata Shakur, the godmother of the late rapper Tupac Shakur, has political asylum in Cuba. So it's
one of the most famous black revolutionaries who was persecuted by her own white supremacist government, and who protected her. It was Cuba.
So it's ridiculous that they try to come out with this music video of just Afro-Cubans. They're careful not to put Pitbull in that, you know, like...
Or Marco Rubio, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can believe that if they're not going to succeed. They've tried since 1959, since the success of the triumph of the Cuban Revolution. But you can bet that if they succeeded, they would not be putting in a working class Afro-Cuban. It would be someone like Narco Rubio, Little Narco.
I see, yes. But yeah, just to wrap up, Ben, so basically, what do you think, or what's your thoughts on how to make like the project here in Nicaragua, or the legacy of the Sandinista popular revolution, relevant to youth movements in the United States, whether it's Black Lives Matter, whether it's indigenous movements, whether it's even like what we call Latinx movements in the US regarding immigration and our self-determination within empire, or anti-police brutality movements. What do you think is the best way to make this relevant amongst youth movements in the United States?
I think people need to understand, we talk about intersectionality, and if we're going to be serious about actual intersectionality, not like the way it's been co-opted by neoliberal Democrats, that includes imperialism, because that's what undergirds this. I mean, we have to, what is capitalism in the stage where all these countries, these imperialist countries are competing to steal the resources of other countries, to colonize other parts of the world. They've already carved up the world with these arbitrary colonial borders. That is what capitalism looks like. It is imperialism. So if you want to be anti-capitalist, we have to be anti-imperialist. And if we want to be anti-racist, we have to be anti-imperialist. Because racism is the tool used by imperialism. When the European colonialists were colonizing Africa, when they were colonizing Latin America, they created white supremacy to divide the working class, in order to exploit black people, to exploit their bodies as slave labor. That's the whole idea of whiteness comes from colonization, European colonization of Africa and the so-called Americas. So all of these struggles are linked. The link of the struggle against white supremacy in the United States is absolutely part of the same struggle against white supremacy here in Nicaragua and in Venezuela and across Africa and across Asia. Because the reality is that is the tool used by the imperialists. And if Nicaragua can continue to be a symbol for Central America and for Latin America, this poor country that has very few natural resources in terms of, it doesn't have oil, it has a lot of, it has a geostrategic location, but it's able to take care of its people. It's able to provide resources and support and healthcare and education and opportunities for its people. I mean, that is itself a huge blow against white supremacy. And the fact that here in Nicaragua, women actually have a huge role in the Sandinista movement. You mentioned the Sandinista youth. The lifeblood of the Sandinista movement is the Sandinista youth. This is an organization of young militants, revolutionaries, who are engaged in community struggles and organizing, and they also organize sports. They also organize cultural events. Like, it's part of your life. But the Sandinista youth is the base of the party. It's the constituency for the movement, the Sandinista movement. And I mean, it's not a coincidence that here in Nicaragua, there is a small percentage of the population who are the light-skinned white elite, who look like me. They're even lighter than me sometimes, lighter skinned than me. And those are the ones who are the right-wing opposition politicians. And it's not a coincidence that the darker skinned folks who are from working class barrios and who are from very humble families, those are the militants, those are the base of the Sandinista front, because they understand they now have something to lose. In the neoliberal era, when they had right-wing governments who didn't care about them, who didn't give them anything, they had nothing to lose. Now they have healthcare, they have education, they have an opportunity to have a government that serves them. Women play a huge role in the government. The Nicaraguan Sandinista model shows that women need to play a key role in the revolutionary process. Nicaragua actually has the 5th highest level of gender equality in the world, which is incredible, the highest in all of Latin America. So they actually have something to lose now, so they're going to fight for it. And I think in the US, we as citizens of the United States, this colonial country that was built on genocide, this white supremacist and misogynist country, we are facing so many similar problems. And this isn't to say that Nicaragua has solved every problem. There still are contradictions in every country, but Nicaragua has offered a lot of potential solutions. And it shows that even in a very poor country, the second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, you can solve these problems if you have a working class movement, a revolutionary anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist movement can take power with the help of the state, but also with organized struggles in the streets. And imagine if you have the wealth of a country like the United States. Now, the United States should pay a lot of that wealth in reparations to the entire world, but imagine about the wealth and the opportunities that could create for a working class, progressive, even socialist movement in the United States. I mean, there's so much we can learn from Nicaragua, from Cuba, from Venezuela, from so many countries. So I think that's why it's important that there's a delegation of solidarity here. It's important also to build networks in English. It's important to say what's going on in English, because in Nicaragua, a lot of these poor working class communities, people don't really speak English. They only speak Spanish. So the more we can provide this information to English-speaking audiences and break the language barrier and show what's really going on beyond the ridiculous propaganda and all the fake news in the media, I think the better. Not only is it going to help the people of Nicaragua and Latin America, it's going to help progressive movements in the United States, because the left is not in one country. The left is an international movement against capitalism and imperialism and against white supremacy and against misogyny worldwide. So the stronger they are here, the stronger that we can be there.
Of course, and that's what it is. I mean, hopefully during this year, when we get back to the U.S., we do more organizing, we do more mobilizing, where we get our youth politicized, our black and brown youth, whether it's in the hood of the South Bronx, or in LA, or in Texas. We get them more politicized, and we get them mobilizing and yelling out, no pudieron ni podrán. That's a saying right here in Nicaragua.
It means they weren't able to and they won't be able to.
That's what he tells to the white man right there. But thank you for being with us, Ben.
Of course.
We appreciate it, brother. All right.
And keep up the amazing work you all do. Anticonquista is great.
Así es.